July 17th, what have you got for us? Okay. So July 17th, the aspects start at 1:40 a.m. and they are asking, so the moon is in Aries, okay? So the emotional state is very I am, okay? Bit fiery and potentially gives us a bit of an inability to be able to kind of empathize with other people, okay? So when we get this first aspect at 1:40 a.m., this is the energy of having to throw something away about how you understand your own emotions or how you display your emotions that you've maybe felt guilt or shame about, or you've been worried that you're going to be misunderstood if you come forward, okay? Now, at 5:02 a.m., there's a square between that moon and Jupiter, meaning that, like, the likelihood of the reasons that you haven't expressed yourself emotionally without this concern of being misunderstood, Jupiter in Cancer, right? So expanding the idea of family and really asking us to look at these places within our family that we've kind of been told to hold back, right? And especially with the moon in Aries, because Saturn and Neptune and Chiron are all in Aries. Saturn and Neptune already retrograde, and Chiron will join them in a couple of weeks. So this Aries energy is quite big at the moment, and we are really being asked to look at these wounds of identity and how holding on to guilt and shame and being worried about being misunderstood makes us not really understand ourselves to the depths that we should be understanding ourselves, okay? So this aspect, this moon squaring Jupiter, is sort of your internal inner child feelings and desires and needs, having this battle with this idea of what your family has taught you, okay? And then that's going to ask for a compromise, right? So what within your guilt and shame and fear of being misunderstood needs to compromise its fear so that you can come forward with what it is that you need to be talking about, with how you need to be coming into a conversation about what it is that you need, right? Non-negotiable needs and desires. So then at 12:40, something within your rule structure and belief system regarding relationships also needs to be kind of looked at, sorted, and let go of, right? There's a lot of energy going into being maybe too much of a stick in the mud, maybe too much only understanding it from your perspective. And Venus in Gemini right now, which is what we're having, Venus in Gemini and Saturn in Aries meeting up at 12:40, and they are going to be really helping you be a little bit more curious about somebody else's inner belief system. So maybe you are like putting this assumption onto somebody that you're in a relationship with because of your own training as a child, because of the way that people reacted to you when it comes to how you spoke up about your feelings. And so we need to let something go there. There is still energy going into something from this place that doesn't need to be going in there. And so then at 2:43 p.m., the energy is going to turn around. And at 2:43 p.m., we get this positive energy in relationship dynamics. So relationship dynamics either in work or in personal relationships, just depending on where Jupiter and Cancer and Gemini and Venus are in your chart. And so this is a positive aspect, right? So this is really being able to not only understand your own emotional space and why you haven't been able to speak up from that space, but also you're curious about somebody else and you're curious about how they do that, or maybe how they see you, and really understanding that if you put your own concept of how somebody else is going to understand it, you're not seeing things clearly, all right? So then at 4:02 p.m., we're going a bit into the dark space, right? Pluto in Aquarius in retrograde, meeting up with the moon as well, right? So we get this energy of where you're putting too much energy into hiding something about yourself, right? And then there's this energy with Uranus in Gemini, newly in Gemini, still at 0 degrees, that's going to kind of kick off this bit of friction, because the moon in Aries is feeling things from itself, but Gemini is curious. And when it comes in with Uranus, we sort of get a little bit curious about what would happen if I changed this? What would happen if I thought of somebody else? What would happen if I sat on the outside a little bit here and really tried to understand this dynamic? And so then within that space, we get this 5:12 p.m. where that relationship, Venus in Gemini, meets up with Neptune in Aries, also in retrograde. And it is kind of saying, remember how we are looking at, you know, these things that we've kind of put in place since the end of March, and we're looking at these, we're revising these ideas, these new ways of living that we've kind of had in. Are we still carrying shit from before then? Are we still carrying shit that our family taught us? Okay. And we're being a little bit curious about that space because we are going to be able to sort through it. We're going to be able to throw some of it away. All right. And so because of that, we get this 520 aspect, which is the moon in Aries and Mercury in Leo, okay, and they're meeting up together. Now, remembering that Mercury right now is almost about to go retrograde. So we're seeing the themes of what that Mercury retrograde is going to be about. And so one of the themes is showing up within these energies, okay? And so the moon in Aries, which is coming in with that very these are my non-negotiable emotional desires, a little bit fiery, having this conversation that we maybe in the past have been a little bit kind of held back because we're worried that if we don't come across in the exact right, perfect way, we're going to be misunderstood or somebody might not like us. And so this is kind of the energy with the work that you've put in during the day of really trying to understand how there is only a negative effect if you don't speak your truth, that we need to now speak our truth. We need to be confident in speaking our truth. And this could be a fiery conversation for some people. This could be a conversation that has been a long time coming for some people. And because we're dealing with Aries and Leo, there could be ego, there could be immaturity, there could be a bit of a dramatic flair thrown in, okay? Mercury and Leo sometimes wants to speak with a dramatic flair, and that Aries kind of energy sometimes wants to stomp its little foot. So just be aware of that when you enter into this conversation space around 5:20, okay? Now at 8:37 p.m., we've had all of this kind of movement, all of this kind of compromise energy, and this energy of like, okay, well then, how am I moving? How am I choosing to motivate? How am I choosing to fire myself up? How am I choosing to take responsibility for my part that I've played in all of this? And how can I move forward in a healing way, right? And so we get this energy at 8:37 p.m. with the moon and Mars meeting up to ask for a compromise, right? So are you a perfection seeker when you're trying to move forward? And if you are, what needs to be let go of there in order for you to be moving from your own perspective and emotional needs and desires, right? And how can we look at the details of moving forward in order to make habitual change so that we are meeting our own emotional needs and desires, okay? So interesting day, probably going to be quite frustrating. Just watch that 5:07 p.m. bit of a square to Uranus and the 5:02 a.m. square to Jupiter, okay? Because that square to Jupiter at 5:02 a.m. could almost be a fight within your family, and that one at 5:07 p.m. is like being fucking late driving home because getting into something, right? Some kind of chaos kind of coming in. So be aware of that. Keep that in mind. Remember, we are in retrograde season, so things do tend to slow down, and we might be facing some kind of delays, and try not to overextend yourself and overpromise because of that, okay? All right, stay weird.